The Chusky Boys!
This is Chad with Hemlock. What does a Chusky Boy looks like?
Chusky Boys, what's that?
Chusky Boys, not to be confused with Husky Boys.
The Chusky Boys.
I believe y'all guys are listening to the Chusky Boys.
This is William Duvall, and you are listening to the Chusky Boys.
Episode 18 of the Chusky Boys. Keep it with a local Rapid City athlete.
Piedmont.
From Piedmont, South Dakota. And here's just a little bit of some of her career highlights and awards, okay? So we're going to start there before we jump into it. But she's been all over the world, it looks like. But we're talking about the MVP of the Icelandic All-Star Game. She was the Foreign Player of the Year, Playoffs MVP, the Series A1 Finals MVP, Icelandic Champion, Euro Cup Women, and three-time Italian champion. I'm sure I missed something. There's a couple words I didn't even want to pronounce here, but we got Miss Megan Mahoney with us tonight.
Megs, what's up?
Woo! Hey guys, thanks for having me.
We got another non-Chusky person on the Chusky Boys podcast. Makes all kinds of sense.
You guys got to tell me where that came from, by the way. I mean, I get it, I think, but...
Oh, you'll get it. Oh, you'll get it. So let's start with the connection. So Dusty, let's kick it over to you. How you know Megan?
I think Megan taught all of us boys from Piedmont how to play basketball at an early age. I remember it was at fourth or fifth grade. Megan was on my team throughout grade school. And I loved after like 3 games when you realize she was the alpha male, if you will. I loved when those like Newell and kids from freaking Sturgis and Vale, blah, blah, blah. They're like, oh my God. They got a girl on their team. And I'm like, all right, dudes, let's go.
Yeah.
And I remember old Bart. I just remember his name right now. Old Bart. I see him around every now and then.
Yep. I've ran into him a couple times too.
Yeah, but Megan Mahoney, not just a basketball player, but a hell of a student, obviously, and an athlete in general. But how did your when did you know that your basketball was something special?
Well, to be honest, things got started, Ryan, my brother's 4 years older than me. And so I started just being competitive and wanting to win and play with him and his friends, everything. They were playing football in the backyard, basketball, baseball. And so I always wanted to join them. And so, I was the annoying little sister and Ryan would be like, oh, you want to play tackle football with us? Okay, come on, let's go. Let's do it. But yeah, I just was competitive. I loved it. It wasn't work, it wasn't a chore to go practice or play. I don't know if I had to say really early on, speaking to what you said about playing against other boys teams. And I don't know if you know this, Dusty, but I think I was in 6th grade, maybe 5th or 6th. And I played on a Rapid team, boys team, me and Jenny Stone from Central. And parents of the other teams filed a lawsuit against us for playing with the boys. And so we had to go to court for it and we won. So, I mean, I guess looking back on it,
who's the dummy now?
Was that the first time you'd kind of had to face a really major, anything against your gender remotely?
Yeah. That was pretty early on. I was a tomboy. I played with the boys most of the time. It was just normal for me. And so I think my parents sheltered me from it. I knew that there was a lawsuit, but they didn't really involve me in it. But yeah, at the time I was like, what's the problem? Like, I don't get it. What's the big deal?
Yeah, how petty can you be? You don't have to answer this. Was it your players on your team, their parents, or
other teams?
Other teams. Isn't that
Rapid
insane?
City teams.
Yeah. Sore losers.
Crazy.
It's probably because you're so good. They didn't know how else to beat you besides with the law for some reason.
Yeah, it was crazy. The other girl that played, she was pretty good. And I don't know. I guess they just didn't like the fact that, we had a good team and they didn't like getting beat up and by girls.
Was that so basketball? I know we always talk about football because you're a Bears fan like me, right?
I still am. Dusty.
So we always
I'm
talk
still on
about,
the
I remember
wagon.
being football fan, basketball, but was basketball like your sport of choice, do you think? I mean, I know there wasn't a lot of soccer around here or not. I mean, I'm sure you played softball or baseball or whatever, but was it basketball always your go-to?
I mean, I just loved every sport. I actually did play soccer up until I think the seasons coincided in middle school or high school. So at the time, so I had to make a decision. And volleyball, slow pitch softball, I did track for middle school and freshman year. So I just loved all sports. But yeah, basketball, when we started, getting into summer tournaments, AAU tournaments. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I loved all sports. I loved football out in the backyard, but basketball just
Piedmont rules.
Yeah, Piedmont rules. There's a car coming. Get off the road. Touchdown is the mailbox.
Knife away. Where are you living, Dusty? What?
Where are you? If you don't know, don't ask. All right. You gotta be tough. You gotta be tough living out here. That's why I'm bald.
So you played all sorts of sports in middle school, and then of course you get to high school. And so something that was failed to mention, as a senior, you were named the Gatorade and USA Today South Dakota Player of the Year. Kind of a big deal. Also, High School Girls Athlete of the Year by the South Dakota Sports Writers Association, and Miss Basketball South Dakota. So when did it come to the point where your focus was going to turn strictly to, or as strictly as it could have been, to basketball? Because those are some pretty high awards. I know it's South Dakota, still a huge deal. Let's be real.
Well, thank you. I played multi-sports all the way through. I stopped track after my freshman year. I'm not a fan of track.
Like, what you running from? That's why I always ask, like, where are you running from? Like the police chasing you? Like, I don't get it.
I remember my 8th grade year, they threw me in, I don't know, Dusty, you remember the Jeff Smith Memorial track meet? It was a big deal.
Yep.
And I ran like 100s, 200s, long jump, some short relays. And they're like, well, we're just going to throw you in the 400 open invitational. It was the worst thing I've ever done. Well, not ever done. I was throwing up afterwards. I was like, that is horrible. No, thanks. I'm good. I'm good on that.
Trial by fire.
Yeah. So anyway, I stopped track after my freshman year. And then I would say like my sophomore and junior year, when we started going to AAU tournaments and, I started getting more letters from colleges. I was like, oh, okay. I can go to the next level at this, because you're right. We are a small town, a small community. And so you don't really know how you stack up. And so when you start going to these tournaments and there were coaches there watching, and then I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe this can take me somewhere. So
getting back to high school, when did you actually, we were debating this earlier. When did you go to varsity? Were you in 7th grade or 8th grade? You were in middle school, right?
Yeah, no, I got pulled up my 8th grade year. So I was starting varsity on 8th grade. So
what was that like then? I mean, did the high school players all know you by then? I mean, you were probably well known, or was it like intimidating to play against seniors as an 8th grader?
No, the actual playing part wasn't. I mean, I remember in the beginning, and I think it's probably the same today. I mean, I hear these stories that, the upperclassmen weren't too happy. People pissed off that an 8th grader was pulled up, that I was starting or playing. And, so there was a lot of chatter, and, girls can be catty. And so that was at the beginning. And then, I mean, I just did what I did on the court. And then I think they embraced me, and I don't think we had issues.
Now, issues with people in that regard, especially like you said, sometimes girls can be catty. People can be super, especially in sports, my team only. Was that something that continued, or was that something maybe you didn't face? Like, for example, when you went to Europe, or has everyone kind of played the same way as far as the teamwork goes?
So, and generally speaking, in Europe, each team can usually have 2 Americans on their team. A total of 4 or 5 international players. 2 of those could be Americans, and then the rest of the team were the nationals. So playing in Italy, 2 Americans, maybe an Australian and a Slovenian, and then the rest were Italian. So sometimes Americans and foreigners got special treatment because we had a higher level, and we were supposed to be better. So there were instances where when you first came in, the nationals are kind of waiting to see what you're really all about.
Like,
And
who's this guy? What are you doing?
yeah, are you a good teammate? Can you hold your weight? Like, and I'll be honest, there were some Americans I played with and on other teams that were like the typical American, like, I'm Michael Jordan and I don't have to practice.
Everyone look at me.
Yeah. And I hated that. But I mean, you'd run into it a little bit, not as bad as high school, like the cattiness.
So we talked about you and I played basketball. I didn't last very long. I think I stopped playing 7th grade. You kept going.
Hey, stop, Dusty. Did you play, or were you like one of the like the agents or whatever? Like made sure Gatorade is better. No,
we'll cut that part out. So, anyways, you kept going. Basketball went up to varsity as an 8th grader. You had all these accolades. I remember the big, what do you call it? When everyone goes to the gym and, they give awards, like, pep assemblies or whatever, and they give you your awards. Remember all those? Remember watching you play like in Mitchell, which is awesome for the finals. Yeah, yep. Corn Palace. That's where I was from, And then through high school, and then this is, I think, probably what's some of the most interesting story that you have. After high school, you went to a big college. Why did you decide to go there, and what was the experience like? Like what was the difference between playing from in Sturgis against, South Dakota teams, which, not to discredit them, there's some great athletes here, obviously, but then you go to the college. Walk us through that, will you?
Yeah. So I think I got my first recruiting letter in 8th grade. And now granted, it was like, and I know that kind of how the system works. Schools will send out general letters to lots of athletes just to get their, foot in the door, get in front of them. I remember I got one from Notre Dame and I was like, oh my gosh, Notre Dame, and it was just a generic, it wasn't handwritten or anything. And so I did receive a lot of letters, and I don't know what the rules are now, but you could take 5 official visits. I had my head set, I was going to Colorado State. I wanted to follow in Becky Hammond's footsteps. She was my role model. I went to camps there. I loved the campus. I knew the coach. And so I was just like, I'm going there. That's where I want to go. So I didn't take any of my other visits. I kind of talked to some other coaches, but I was pretty confident. So Kansas State hung around. They came in the summers. They kept coming to my tournaments, and the coach was there, and she'd be sure to make sure I knew she was there. And they were on me hard. And I was almost just like annoyed. I'm like, and I remember one time the assistant coach, and she just like, I said, I'm 99% sure I'm going to Colorado State. So like pretty much. And she goes, is the door open at all? Even a crack? And I was just like, maybe a crack. And she goes, okay, we want to bring you down for a visit. And I'm like, okay. I was just kind of like, sure, whatever. So they actually flew their little jet plane up to the Sturgis airport, which I didn't even know there was an airport there at the time.
Wow.
And so they flew me down to Manhattan, and I was there for, I don't know, a weekend or 3 days. And I just fell in love. I fell in love with my teammates and what they were trying to build, because they weren't really an established team. Like they were like bottom of the barrel Big 12. But they had a Kansas All-State player that was a freshman. And then the recruiting class, the recruits that had already signed were like top players in the country and in Kansas. And so I just felt like I really wanted to be a part of like building something up. And so I remember calling my mom from when I was down there, and she always tells a story. She thought I was calling to, Mom, come get me. I hate it. Like I need to get home. And I called her and I was like, I think I'm going to change my mind. And she was just like, what? Cause she knew that I was, almost dead set on going to Colorado State. So I came home and I changed my mind, and I signed there. And honestly, for my career, it was probably the best decision I ever made, because they played in a tougher conference, and then we had pretty good success and had a great team. And to speak to the change, Division I from high school, especially a big conference, the speed is just, it's another level. Like it's a whole nother level, and everyone's good. They're all Division I athletes. And so I was probably middle of the pack throughout my career, like athleticism wise. I wasn't the fastest. I didn't jump the highest. I didn't have the purest shot. But people used to call me like the best utility player. Like I was kind of like, my coach there called me the Elmer, right? She called me Elmer. I was the glue that held the team together, I guess. So it was an adjustment period. But when I got there, we started 4 freshmen and a senior, which is, it's pretty uncommon. Like for a freshman to start, or, not to mention 4 of us. So but it was amazing. I mean, it was the Big 12 conference. It's been shaken up now over the years, but it was a great conference. And
what were some of the big schools in that conference?
Texas, Baylor, Texas Tech, Texas A&M. You had Nebraska, KU, which they weren't very good while I was there. The rivalry wasn't the same. Our rival was Texas.
That's one of the biggest Manhattan things ever too, is to kind of not say the nicest things about anyone from like Lawrence or the Jayhawks. So it's interesting that your rival was Texas and not KU.
Yeah, they didn't have a very good team. I mean, they stunk the 4 years we were there. Not to be mean, but that's how it was. And so it was. I'm not say it was a gimme. No game was a gimme, but yeah, we battled with the Texas schools and Baylor every year for the top of the conference. And so I mean, it was a great experience. I remember when we first started. It was like I said, they were kind of middle, bottom of the barrel, and so our games there were a couple thousand people, a few students, and then we started winning. And there was excitement grew. And then I remember once Big 12 season came around, I mean, we had sold out stadiums. So it was like 12 to 14,000 people. And we would come to the gym, 2.5 hours before. And I'll never forget it. People were snaked outside in line waiting to get in. And so when we were out there shooting, and so it's, Bramlage, the Coliseum, it's just like an oval and it's down. And I remember being down there and they opened the doors and let people in, and the students were running. It was like a stream of ants just running down, and they were like diving, laying out on the bleachers to save seats and stuff. The first time it happened, we were just like, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, the atmosphere was just incredible. It's a small town, a college town, sports town. And then obviously when you have some success, people get on board and get excited. So it's good years.
College, the fans of college sports are just ravenous. It's insane.
They're psycho.
Even now, and it's just crazy.
Well, on that, I think some things a little regional about that. Like, for example, where I go at UTEP, it's not, Manhattan's a special kind of college town also. Mm-hmm. It's, the love for the little apple is just something different. Cause like here, people don't react the same, especially to sports. It's like a take it or leave it kind of thing, even though like the basketball team is great. So where you're from it's something special, something to witness.
No, absolutely. I think it makes a difference. The smaller, college towns where you're not in the big city where there's a lot of options for, entertainment and sporting and professional teams. And yeah, they love their sports there. You're absolutely right.
So your freshman year then, did you guys get good that year? Or was it not until like your sophomore year?
No, actually we made it the furthest. We made it to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament that first season. And then after that, we never got past the second round. We choked in the tournament, but yeah. At my junior year, we shared the Big 12 title with Texas or Texas Tech. I can't remember, but.
Who was like the best gal you played against in college, do you think? I should ask you this. Let's go back. Who's the best gal you played in high school? Like, who was like, you're like, oh, wow, she's got to be on my game because.
Well, it was always freaking the Roosevelt Rough Riders, their whole damn team.
Really?
Because they had, they just ran the table there, and,
they were just stacked all the time.
Well, they recruited. Fred Tibbetts was the coach, and so they recruited the best athletes. And so, I think they won state every year.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
That I played. So
did anyone from that team ever have success after high school?
Yeah, they had a few girls, several girls that went D1 and D2. I actually had, nice. 2 years ago, I got inducted into the South Dakota Basketball Hall of Fame. And so, I'm forgetting her name. One of the Roosevelt girls got inducted the same time. And so we were chatting about, I think she went to, did she go to Colorado State? She might have went to Colorado State, but yeah, so we were just chatting.
We have our people looking that up right now.
Was there any, especially at that time in high school, any personal victories that really signified where you were going in life? Because sometimes it's not always, the college letter that tells you you're going somewhere. Sometimes it's those little things that no one ever thinks about. Was there one of those moments for you?
Yeah, well, I think in hindsight, you realize it. When you're a high school kid in the moment, you don't,
it all passes by.
Yeah. But just the camaraderie and the hard work, because that's what, fans and people don't realize. They see, an hour and a half of game and that's it. And there's a lot of time and work and effort and, as the cliche goes, blood, sweat, and tears. And so the moments that I had with my teammates throughout those years, I mean, the bus rides, those are the memories that you really hold on to.
It's bonding. It's an intense relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you go to Kansas State University. You're going to be there 4 years, or the goal is to be there for 4 years. What was your plan afterwards? Was it always the WNBA, or when did you kind of know the next step after school? Then what? Or if that changed multiple times, like what does that look like from a professional athlete?
Yeah. So I played with 3 All-Americans. So Nicole Oldie, she was a year older than me. And so she got drafted. I think she was the 3rd or 4th pick in the draft to the Minnesota Lynx. So, that was a big hurrah, and we were so excited for her. We went up to a couple games. And then my senior year, like I said, I was playing with 2 All-Americans. And so they were, expected to get drafted high. And again, like I said, I was like this utility player, like I wasn't great at one thing, but I was good at a lot of things. And so I was kind of, I guess, under the radar. And so when it started getting towards the end of the season, my coaches started telling me that there were some teams that were interested. And I was just like, what? It wasn't really a reality until the end of my senior year. And then actually my senior year in our Big 12 tournament, I tore my Achilles. And so that's a pretty major surgery, especially that was, oh my God, I'm getting old. When did I graduate? 2005.
Was that your first major injury playing basketball?
Mm-hmm. So I was devastated, had surgery, rehabbed, and I still ended up getting drafted by the Connecticut Sun. I had met the coach and he took a chance, even though I was injured. So that summer I was rehabbing, and I went out to Connecticut a few times and met with the players and the team and rehabbed and stuff. And then my first season playing professionally was in Iceland. And then after that Icelandic season, I came back to Connecticut. But to speak to that, I was just like, I'm going to get my degree and get in the real world. And then it just kind of became a reality at the very end.
So when you you got drafted by Connecticut, and then you went to play in Iceland, do you have to get like permission then from the WNBA or from the coach or the owner or whatever, in case you get injured again?
No, that's on each player. So the seasons are opposite. So the WNBA season runs from like April, May through August into September. The overseas seasons go from September through the fall and winter and end in like April, May. So there were a lot of girls that played both seasons. I mean, they just go from one to the other. But you took that risk because generally and now I don't know where it's at, but playing overseas, you were able to make more than playing in the WNBA, especially if you weren't like one of the top stars, you were a rookie or a mid-level. Yeah. So if you play in the WNBA and you got hurt, it was just a risk that you took on yourself, that if you're going to possibly get hurt and miss your overseas season, that's how it goes.
So do a lot of the players go overseas? And I want to bring up something current with Brittany Griner, where, she looks like she plays quite a bit in Russia in the off season, and maybe was trying to bring something back she shouldn't have. But is there a lot, if you put a percentage on it, of women in the WNBA where they play overseas?
90%. 90%.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, one, there's more, every country has their own professional league. So like Italy, when I played, there were 14 teams and then it was down to 12. So, and then you have all the countries. So there's more opportunities. The WNBA, it's limited roster spots. And then, like I said, you could have the potential to make more money over there if you got in the right situation and you played well. So yeah, I mean, that was a majority. I would want to say 100%, but there were a few that, not the superstars, because I actually played a few times against Brittany Griner and their team in Ekaterinburg, Russia. I think there was rumor that their manager was a mafia boss. And they got paid. Really?
Wow. Huh.
And actually, I think if I remember correctly, he got a drive-by shot up in his car, killed in a drive-by shoot up.
That's the Piedmont of Russia.
Yeah, exactly the same.
Throwing up the P.
Piedmont Mafia. Yeah.
So you get drafted by Connecticut, you tore your Achilles, you go to Iceland, you kick their ass, you come out and you play your first season WNBA.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be considered? So then, would that be your first season playing? But did you miss an entire WNBA season, or did you not have to miss one because of your injury?
I did. Yep, I missed the whole first season. I mean, I was still considered a rookie because I hadn't played yet.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that was my first experience. The WNBA for me. What's that?
Do you get paid when you're not playing?
No.
No contract, no nothing like that. Okay.
I wasn't then because I hadn't already signed a contract.
Oh, sure. You were drafted. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So for me, my WNBA experience wasn't, I mean, okay, it was, the highest level apart from the Olympics, that you can get to. And so there was a lot of pride and honor in that and being there. But it was my experience, it was very, each person out for themselves. It was very cliquey, very political. And I mean, I think a pretty easygoing person. And I mean, I was just on my own because it was just like the veterans didn't really want to talk to the rookies and they just had their little cliques. And so I was just kind of, we'd go on road trips and I'm just like walking around New York City by myself, checking out the sights. And so I don't know. I just, especially when I compare it to playing in Europe where it was like really team oriented, family oriented. I mean, it's still professional. Everyone's playing. It's their job, but it was just not every man out for himself. And that
your K-State days were oriented like family too.
Yeah.
I mean, so you had a great upbringing. High school was awesome for you. College is great. Go to WNBA and just like, this is like, you probably feel homesick and kind of questioning whether or not you made the right decision at all, I suppose, right? Especially since you already had a taste of European basketball before you played your WNBA season.
Well, yes and no. So just to touch on in Iceland, my first experience. So I was probably 22 at the time and I was the oldest player on the team. So it was a lot of younger girls and I stayed in a hostel, which was pretty interesting. So, I mean, I was in this hostel with like this Danish painter and a woman from Uganda who I don't know, she was there with her 2 kids. And there was a Serbian men's basketball player and a Bosnian men's basketball player. And so it was just real hodgepodge, it was like a dorm. I mean, I had just come from college, but the girls themselves, it was great, but I was the oldest at 22. So I was almost like I was playing with college or high school kids again. No, and I didn't question like whether I should be in the WNBA. Like I was just like, wow, I mean, I've made it here. And now granted, I didn't play a lot. It wasn't, I didn't have a lot of success there, but I had the experience and, I played in Madison Square Garden. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I got to play in some sweet arenas and travel and I wouldn't change it for a thing. It wasn't. And then I played 2 years in Connecticut and then they traded me to Houston, the Houston Comets. And at the time, which, I mean, and it doesn't matter, I played with all sorts of women, my style was not the same. I mean, they had a lot of super athletic, just like one-on-one players. And I was very like fundamental and team oriented, like read the game. And so I don't know why they traded for me. So, I mean, they cut me after like 2-3 weeks of training camp.
Yeah.
And so after that, probably 3, 4, or 5 seasons, I had the opportunity. I got invited to come to some training camps, but I just didn't feel like the path for me. I loved playing overseas and I would spend some time traveling after the season was over there. And then I'd come home and I'd, do camps and spend time with my family and you just kind of enjoy life and then start to get prepared for my overseas season. So,
and I know how close you are with your family. So is it really hard for you to be gone for 6-7 months at a time overseas away from your mom and your brother and everyone else and me? I mean,
yeah. And you, I love my family. I'm super close to all of them, but I was never like a homebody. So I was like, yeah, let's go. Let me get out of here. Let me try the food. Let me go sightsee, So I loved being over there, but it got lonely at times. I mean, they put put us up in apartments while we're there. And so I had my dog who was always with me. He was my little buddy. And my teammates were great, but you're alone a lot. And, you have 2 practices a day, and then, you fill your time. And so I definitely miss my family. Those were the Skype days. My mom, if I didn't answer on Skype, where are you? What's going on? Are you okay? What are you doing? So I had to make sure I got in a couple times a week calls to mom.
When you're at that level, Megan, do you need any kind of agent or anything, or do you negotiate contracts yourself, or how does that work?
No, I had an agent. So when I got drafted, I went out to Connecticut to visit and watch a game. And one of the girls' husbands was an agent. And me, I was kind of just like naive. I didn't really know what I'm doing. And he was like, I'm an agent. And he was a Greek guy, was married to an American. And so I signed on with him. And so I had him for 2 years. And so, yeah, they take care of it, which you need it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. And honestly, I was pretty fortunate, but I had a lot of friends who were playing and not getting paid. And it would be, our sponsors, or you're gonna get paid late. We're a couple weeks behind. Oh, next month.
So
yeah.
Is that WNBA or overseas?
Overseas. No,
Really?
Overseas. Because they have private sponsors for these teams. All the sponsors you see on the jerseys, I mean, that's who's, paying your checks. And so I don't know, if the pizzeria down the street had a bad month, you might not get your paycheck or whatever. So, I mean, I had a lot of friends that had to, and it was like, what do you do? Do you leave? Then you're really not going to see any money. Do you, I had friends that would sit out practices, or if it got 3-4 months behind, they'd sit out games. They've had to file lawsuits with FIBA, the Federal International Basketball Association. So I only had 1 year like that. And this is kind of funny. I have to tell this story. So I played in the South, in Southern Italy. And so again, there were talks that our general manager had mafia ties. I don't know for sure. His father owned Basile Gas, petrol. So the dad had a lot of money, and his son was our GM, and he kind of had fun with it. So he would sometimes come into our practice in his suit, and there'd be like 3 guys in suits with him, and where I was like, oh, there's a mafia. But my last season there, I was missing a couple payments. And so the season ended, and we'll get it to you. And so I started the next season on a different team. And so my agent was getting close to filing a lawsuit with FIBA. And so they put the papers in front of them, and they said, all right, well, we'll pay you 75% of what we owe you in cash. And then let's call it good. We don't have, no lawsuits. So I was just like, okay, let's just do it. I don't want to go through paying for FIBA and whatever. So my agent, I was in Lucca, which is in Tuscany, so middle region of Italy. So he drove down south and met the representative from the club, and he gave him a black duffel bag of euros cash and said, all right, here it is, count it. She can't deposit it in any banks. You can't, it's black money pretty much. So I remember he called me and said, hey, let's meet out. And I mean, so we went and met. I got in his car. We drove out like on an old deserted road, and he goes, okay, count it. So he hands me the bag. So I'm in there counting, these euros. And so I basically had, several $1,000s of euros hidden in my apartment in sections. And then I gave little bits to my mom when she came to visit me, but I couldn't deposit it in my Italian bank account because it was black money, which honestly, it's not that I'm not the rarity. It happens.
That's not something you expect to happen to you when you're overseas playing, like you're in a TV show or something.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, I had a couple American, I played with one of them. They were in Russia, and Russian teams pay a lot of money, and they usually pay it in cash. And so her and another American were flying home for Christmas, and they taped thousands of dollars on their waist and got caught, just like Brittany Griner did.
Oh my God.
At the Russian airport. And they had like 30,000 euros on them taped. And I don't know what exactly or how much, but they essentially paid them off and they let them go.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is the crazy stuff that happens in the world of sports
We're
here.
gonna need the Chusky Boys legal team to
I know.
review this before we before we publish this, JR.
I didn't say any names.
I was
I
gonna
didn't
say
say
we'll
any
beep. Yeah,
names.
no names. We're fine. This is
all
fine.
hypothetical.
Fine. Yep.
Yes.
Just if this were to happen.
Yeah.
So speaking of like an experience like that, I was going to ask what the idea of travel was like being able to travel for a passion of yours, for your career, for your life is kind of a trip anyway, but let alone this kind of thing happening to you. Is any of that something you fathomed as you were kind of climbing your way up to this position?
Oh, no. I remember my first year in Italy, we would take these like little vans to the our road games. And I remember we were driving through like the Tuscan hillside, and I'm just like looking out the window, at the Tuscan hills, and you see like the postcards with the trees and the Chianti wine and this and that. And I'm just like, is this real life right now? Like I'm dry, I'm not gonna say every American's, wish list to travel to Italy and drink the wine and eat pizza, amore.
But you're like a rock star in that regard. You're touring, you're kind of making money what you're doing and you're working at it.
Yeah, no, it was, I've been totally blessed. Like it was, a lot of times it was surreal. And then it almost, Italy, I played 12 seasons there. So, it almost became like my second home. Like I spoke the language pretty fluently, and I had a lot of friends there, not just my teammates, but, friends that I made. And it was a pretty great experience. I could live there easy.
When you played there and then you would come back to see the family and stuff like that, were you compensated enough playing over there where you didn't have to work while you were here?
There were a few seasons that, after we won a championship, you get a raise or whatever, you get promoted to a better team. So when I came back, I would do camps, just because that's what I like to do and to stay connected and just to make a little bit of money. But no, I was able to come and be here for 3 months and not have to work.
What was the culture shock like, especially like right as you got back?
When I got back here?
Yeah, when you got back to like your home or wherever you were living at the time, that there must have been some kind of, oh my God, I'm not in Italy. People are different, at least initially.
Yeah.
Did Pizza Hut suck even worse is what she's asking after Italy?
That was the question.
Yeah, I was never a huge pizza fan anyway, but now I'll be honest, I'm a coffee snob after being in Italy, kind of a pizza snob. And then food in general, it's just, I'm kind of getting sidetracked, but everything's fresh there. Like when I played in South Valley for 5 years, Taranto. And so the gym was here and I lived straight down the road, probably 5-6 blocks. And so on the way home, there was the little bakery with all the fresh bread every day. And then right next to it was the meat shop that, they do the fresh meat. And then the next shop was the fruit and veggie stand. And, so it was just like, I could just pick up fresh food every day if I wanted to. And like the little old ladies, it was like this prototypical Italian old lady in her little apron. And they had like little carry-ons. They were like little carry-ons that they would take every day. And they go get their bread, and they go get their salami, and then they go get their pasta. And
everything's local and like familial almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a culture shock in the south of Italy because they kind of have this reputation of being lazy. They enjoy life and they have 5 coffee breaks a day and they take 2.5-hour lunch. And so I remember I got there and it was like a Sunday. And so I went walking with my dog and it's like, no one's out. No one's around. I'm like, okay, Monday morning, same thing. Everything's closed. No one's out. And I'm like, it's a ghost town. So they have Mondays off. They take literally like, they have lunch from 1 to 4. You got to eat and then you got to nap. And then their shop.
That's the Dusty Hirsch special right there.
Yeah, you should move to Italy. Fit right in.
Or I'm there.
So I remember being annoyed at first. I was just like, and it was so slow paced. And, they make an appointment for me to go get my physical at 2. And I sit there till 3:30. And there's everybody in the waiting room. And it's, I'm like, everyone's just da-da-da. And I was like, don't you guys have things to do? Don't people have to work? You know, how our society is. It's like the rat race and go, go, go. And then I got used to it. You know, it's like, okay, let's have lunch with our family. You sit down with your family, you eat, you talk, then you have a coffee. And it's just like kind of a slower pace of life. And I feel like they kind of enjoy life because there was kind of a lot of poverty in some of those places down there, but they just love life, and they give the kisses, bacho, and here's the coffee. And
You're there to like train and play and be really intense for the whole time you're there.
Yeah, no, I mean, we did. When it was time to work, it was time to work. But I mean, I think I soaked in the culture while I was there. I mean, I had a great opportunity to do that. So I'm thankful I had it. And no, I would have never dreamed that was possible growing up or even in college. Didn't even fathom it.
That's really remarkable, especially being able to make it to that point too.
Yeah, it was very, very fun.
So you won overseas, you won multiple championships, right? 3 specifically in Italy, right? 2009, 2010, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what was, when you were over there, when you kind of made the decision that the WNBA was out, right? You weren't going back. You didn't want to go to their training camps. Like, you felt like you had a good thing over there.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like you got injured again is what I'm seeing. It looks like twice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But your trajectory with them, you win the championship in 2015. What was it like after that?
Yeah. So, the team I won the 3 championships with, that was the same team in the South, Toronto, but they say it Toronto. So we had a really good season there and had a good run. And I mean, the fans there were just nuts. Like, again, it wasn't a huge city. They, you know, kind of, they had this, was it a steel mill? Something, you know, so a lot of people worked there, but there was this big, you know, thing with the pollution and people were getting sick. And so and then people were losing jobs and stuff. So they really like rallied around our team. Like, we had this fun, you know, successful team. And so, I mean, it wasn't a huge gym. I don't know, maybe there were 3,000 people, but they filled that gym every game. And you've seen soccer games, right? Italian or European. I mean, horns and drums and flags, and, you know, the Italians, they talk with their hands, they do this, and they curse at you, and they curse at the refs and the other team. And so the environment was just awesome. And I remember when we won our first championship, it was there. No, that was the second one. They stormed the floor. And I mean, we were just mobbed. We were mobbed by these fans. And I mean, there were people crying, like, just like, thank you. They say, you make us dream is kind of their expression. And so, like, it was really endearing. It wasn't just basketball. Like, we really were. And I still have those fans that will write me like now, and I haven't played there in 10 years. Oh, we miss you. We miss Toronto. You know, we miss the team. And because they've dropped out of the first division now, but, so it was more meaningful than just, I'm just playing. I'm just an athlete, you know.
It's not just a game at that point.
Yeah. And then in 2015 with the French team I played for, we won what's called a Euro Cup. So they have 2 separate. Euro League is like the top, and it's usually, I think, 16 teams. And so you play home and away. So we did play in Euro League. So you got to travel like to all the different countries. And then Euro Cup is kind of the step down. It's the teams that didn't quite make it to Euro League. So you're here. And so we made it to the finals. And so I was playing in France, and the team we played in the finals was from Belgium. So they were close. It was right across the border. So how it worked is that it's a 2-game final, like aggregate score. So they came to our house the first game, and we lost at home by 4. So we had to go there for the second game. Well, they played in a small gym. Well, they had all this, you know, attention, and it was the first time either team had made it to the final. So they moved it from their small gym to like the big, like, national arena, you know, that was going to hold more people. So we went over there, and it was just, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, they had, you know, their politicians there, and their mayors and cheerleaders and smoke and the whole rigmarole, you know. And I think they allowed 500 of our fans to come. So we had this little small section. And so we went there, and we went in their house, and we beat them by, I don't know, 15, 20. And so that was pretty awesome. So we won the championship there, and we were, you know, they had the champagne, and we were, you know, getting crazy. And I remember because they would do random drug tests. And so we're like celebrating, oh, to you have to come do a random pee test. Well, I couldn't pee, so I had to sit in there for like 2 hours, and they're bringing you beers, like here's the beers. So the team's out celebrating the victory, and me and my teammate were in there trying to pee.
That's insane.
It was pretty cool.
That's timing.
Is that when you were named the MVP of that finals then? So you were like the Michael Jordan for the French.
I went quite.
I mean, come on, that's what I've been telling people for years.
The modesty, though.
Like Diana Taurasi for one game.
Well, the amount of effort and work you put in for that one moment, I think, deserves all the celebration, even like now. So we're going to keep that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So what happened then? You went from Italy, you played there for like half a dozen years, I think. Then you went over to France. So what was the story with that? I'm sure the Italian people were devastated. At least your team was.
Well, I played on 3 different teams in Italy. It was 8 seasons. And then I got an offer from a team in France, and it was weird because I felt like I was part Italian and I'd been there so long, and I felt like I was cheating on Italy. But, I got this good offer to play on this Euro Cup team. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's give it a try. So I went and played for this French team for 2 years. And then I came back to Italy for 2 more seasons on a different team. And then I was on the fence about being done. My body was hurting. And then so I got signed to play in Belgium. And so I was in a preseason there, and I was having all this foot pain. And then in a practice, I just stepped wrong and felt something snap, and I tore a tendon in my foot. And so I had to have surgery there. And I would have been 34 at the time, I think. And I was already in the fence about retiring, and I had this surgery, and they're like, it's a 7 to 8 month rehab. And I was just like, all right, someone pushed me over the fence. I'm ready to be done. So I stayed over there for like 6 weeks and did some rehab, and then came back.
So speaking of all that, we had Cooper Bowman on, who is from Rapid City, got drafted by the Yankees last summer. He was on last week or the week before. And he's talking to us now about, going from JUCO to college, now drafted by the Yankees, how like the progression of like trainers and dietitians. Did you guys or gals have that as well at your disposal?
In college, yes. In the WNBA, yes. Overseas, it depended on the team, and kind of, like their salary cap and things like that. But yeah, we had over there, they have osteopaths, which is, I don't know, it's kind of like a chiropractor, but they do a lot more hands-on stuff. So, I mean, we had, massage therapists and treatment and trainers and stuff. And that was one of the reasons towards the latter part. I mean, I've spent so much time and energy just trying to take care of my body, like not just practice time, but I was tired. It was like, okay, you got to go 2 hours before practice to get therapy, and you got to go out half an hour before everyone else and warm up and stretch and do this and that. Then after, you got to sit in the ice tub, and you got to go do this. And it was just like, it just drained on me. I was thankful that we had the resources there for sure, but
yeah.
So on that, being able to work doing what you love is kind of terrifying anyway. But for you, when everything is pretty much dependent on that regimen, on putting effort into, even if you're not clocked in, you're clocked in some other way. Mm-hmm. What is an injury like for you at that stage? Is it, career defining? Does it make you think about life or other things?
Yeah. So for me, there were some girls that would sign multiple year contracts, but most of the time you sign 1 year contracts. So there was one, just the stress of if you don't perform, you might not have a job, not with this team or not with any team. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of competition. Like I said, I would say 90% of WNBA women go over there. So there's always somebody ready to come take your spot. So there was just the stress of that.
No pressure.
Yeah. You just didn't know from one year season to the next. And then an injury, like I was talking about earlier, if you got injured in the WNBA, it's the same thing if you got injured overseas. If it's a serious injury, I mean, you might, even though you can rehab and come back, it's as a team going to take a chance on you. The smaller injuries, like the chronic stuff, you had to stay on top of it. Like as I got older, I'm like, if I don't do therapy and an ice bath and go do this and get a massage and stretch, I can't play. Like, I mean, I was hurting. And And actually, I tore my ACL when I was in Italy, one of my last years. And I'm very thankful this team, San Martino is the name of the team. I tore my ACL not even halfway through the season. And so I had surgery there, and I didn't want to play just because I missed playing. I wanted to play because I was so tired of doing rehab. I mean, it was like 4 or 5 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and then you got to go sit and watch practice. And it was strenuous. I mean, being injured, apart from not being able to be on the court, is so much worse than when you're playing. But anyway, they took a chance on me and they re-signed me for the next year. And I mean, I had a great year in my last season there, and I'm thankful because not everyone does that. They're like, "Oh, you're 33 and you coming back from an ACL." Well, good luck, because it is still a business for them. I mean, it the end of the day. So
people are investing in you, and it's like you're the product, you're the investment. Yeah. So again, no pressure, but everything regarding everyone's wealth is dependent on you and your ability. So
yeah,
that's insane. That's the kind of work that people don't think about, especially whether it's college sports, professional sports, that people put time into. It's like you're always working in some form or fashion. You're not there for the 48-minute basketball game and then they go home and party, or they go, you know what I mean? Like, you got to think LeBron James is doing, a pretty strenuous regimen too to keep himself playing as high level at how many years he's been in the NBA now. So
forever.
It seems like it. Absolutely. Right. And then your celebration gets taken away from you for a drug test. So then that happens.
Hey, whatever happened to that drug test anyways?
I passed.
All right. There we go. So speaking of conditioning and being fit and all that nonsense, was there any Chusky gals that you played with over the years? Like any big bone gals that would get in there and throw their hips around?
Yeah, there were some big gals for sure. There were some big gals and strong, and there were some Chusky, as you say.
Well, on that is, I don't want to bring the mood down, but is there any discrimination that will, because, you're a woman in sports, you're kind of paving the way just in general, but is there any difference, like as far as treatment goes towards women that are, dependent on size, or is it just about how well you can play the game?
I mean, if you could play and you could contribute to the team, I mean, you were embraced.
I remember our 5th and 6th grade, 7th grade, whatever basketball practices, how I almost died, almost every one of them. I almost just keeled over.
Running us to death.
Oh yeah, those chutes and ladders, whatever they call them.
Yeah.
The intensity of the WNBA and the European practice, and even the games themselves. I mean, do you have to be at 11 out of 10 shape to keep up like what you gals did?
So the WNBA, to be honest, the pre-training camp was hard as hell. I mean, one, you're weeding out the players that aren't going to make it, and we're trying to get in shape. And then the season, though, is so condensed, though. I mean, it's 3 months, and you're playing every 2-3 days. So practices weren't always that hard because, the girls that played had to recoup, and you're scouting the next team, and, you're watching film, then you're going through plays. So physically, the WNBA in that aspect wasn't as bad. Overseas, oh my God, 6 weeks of preseason was horrible. Hated every minute of it. But yeah, so it was like you would play, like my team in Italy, we'd play on Sunday, you'd have Monday off, Tuesday morning off. Tuesday night practice was hell, and it felt like you've been off for a month. I mean, it was like, all right, you had your day of fun, or, if you guys were partying after the win, all right, now we're running. Tuesday, Wednesday were hell, and then it would phase. And in my latter years, I had to reduce my practice time just because my knees couldn't take it the whole week. And my coach, he was kind of old school, and we had a great relationship, and he knew I wasn't like just slack, and I don't want to practice. It's like my knees, I can't. If you want me to be full effect on Sunday, I need Tuesday, Wednesday off or limited.
When you're at that level, you can have that conversation and say, hey, coach, like, this is where I'm at. If you want, just like you said, if you want me to be full strength for Tuesday or for Thursday, gotta give me Tuesday off.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I was in the best shape of my life when I played. I mean, it's injuries galore, and I feel like I'm 70 now, but I was in great shape then.
So you talk about having fun. How much fun could you have then? Because you came home when the season was over, I think every year, right? So while you were there, you had a day or two off throughout the week. Did you get to do a lot of like sightseeing and exploring and things that you normally wouldn't be able to do?
Oh yeah. Almost every day off. I mean, if we've on the rare occasion got 2 days off or 2.5, I mean, we would go somewhere. Like the last team I played, I was an hour from Venice. It's like, let's go to Venice for the day. You know, I had a teammate who lived there, so she gave us the ins and outs. Or when I played in France, we were an hour and a half train ride from Paris. It's like, let's go. I mean, I was like, if we weren't exhausted, and just wanted to rest, it was like, yeah, I took the time to go out and just explore places and check things out, because it was a rare opportunity.
What was the just super basic, non-inventive question here, but what was one of the coolest things you got to experience and see while you were over there?
Yeah, well, one of my favorite places, top 5, top 3 in the world I've been, it's called Cinque Terre. So it's in Italy, and it stands for like 5 towns. Google it. It's amazing. So it's 5 little towns built into the cliffs, pretty much. I mean, they make postcards and pictures of it. So they have a little train that goes to each one, or you can hike each one. And I mean, you're like, I can't wrap my mind around how they built these houses way up here into the rocks, like hundreds of years ago, but just, that's one of my very favorite places. And then one of my best friends is from Slovenia, not Slovakia. It's Slovenia, which it borders Italy on the northeastern side. And so I went and visited her a couple times, and it's like this hidden gem. It's like, they call it the green country, mountains, like lake water that's just like seawater, transparent, just freaking beautiful. And so the times I went there, I mean, I'm really big into nature and stuff. I'm getting nostalgic now. I need to go back.
Will you go back ever, do you think? Do you think you'll ever go back?
Well, yeah, so right before COVID, my mom and I had tickets to fly in April to go for 2 weeks. I mean, we were going to go to Slovenia and Italy and just see a bunch of my friends and buzz around. And it was right when when COVID started. So it got canceled, and I haven't made it back. I mean, it's been really busy with work and then with all the restrictions going on now, the craziness going on now. So I definitely want to get back. I just don't know when.
So your resume is kind of overwhelming, right? I think we hit on all the high marks of it. The championships. So Jared's got the paper there. We don't want to make you brag or anything. The one thing that you didn't get done, you didn't get to accomplish, you didn't get to see, whatever it may be, what do you think that is?
Oh, well, if I go way back, it's not winning a state championship. If I'm just being honest, we never beat Roosevelt in our state, never won a state championship, but that's here nor there. I didn't win a Euro League championship. We're talking about basketball wise, Euro League championship. That was kind of the creme de la creme. We made it to the final 8 one year, but never won that. But I mean, my bucket list, I was right across I don't even know which sea it was now. It was not the Aegean. I never went to Greece. I played 10 years in Italy, Greece right across the channel there, and I never went. And so that's on my bucket list. And New Zealand is on my bucket list, which that's totally separate part of the world. But that is somewhere I definitely am going to go before I die.
How many houses do you have to sell to go to New Zealand for 2 weeks? 20?
A lot.
How is a house?
Really, really big, expensive, nice house.
Yeah, huh? if I can get one of those, then I can take that trip.
Before we touch on the realtor stuff, go back to high school, winning a state championship. Bring me back to memory lane. Who was some of the teammates that you had that I'm just not thinking of right now?
Well, Brittany Hubbard.
Sturgis Brown. Brittany Hubbard. There you go.
Brittany Hubbard, Mike and Ziegler, Megan Little. Oh, yeah. And then, our grade, Jody Netterberg, Kim Bennett, Tony Lidke.
Sure.
I mean, the older girls, I played with Tony's sister, Tara Lidke, when I was an 8th grader. Mindy Stearns, Rena Brooke, Christine Francis.
Oh, yeah. Wonderland Homes right there. So these days, you're back in Rapid City. I'm not going to say how old we are, but we're pretty much exact same age almost.
Yeah.
What are you doing these days? I know we kind of touched on it earlier, but tell us what you do.
Yeah, well, I'm a full-time realtor now. It's kind of funny how it came about. So when I was in Belgium, had that surgery, I was over there contemplating life and what I was going to do next. And that was a scary thing as well. You know, like I had been playing for so long, like that's what I knew, you know, and it's like my degree that I got in college 15 years prior, you know, I haven't used it. It was family studies and social services. So I didn't use it. So it was kind of a terrifying thing. And I hear it often from my friends and other athletes, like when you're retiring, it's like, what am I going to do? You know? So I was over there contemplating life, and I was thinking about when I came back, like getting lined up. I had been doing some training, individual training, basketball training and camps. And so I emailed Steve Anderson, who is the owner and broker of Assist to Sell Realty, where I work. And we knew each other from high school. And so I just emailed him and I was like, hey, Steve, how's it going? I was just asking him about gym space and what's available, what it would cost to build, et cetera, et cetera. And so he emails me back, you know, about all this. And the end, he just throws in there at the end of the email, you ever thought about getting your real estate license? And I was like, no, I mean, not even something that crossed my mind ever. I don't like sales stuff. I'm not a salesperson-y. And so he's like, well, I think you might like it. It's flexible. You could coach. I'd love to have you in my office. Anyway, so that was it. And so he kind of put a seed in me, a little bug in my ear. So when I came back in 2018, he was like, well, if you want to like shadow me and just see what it's all about. So I just kind of started following him around. I was like, oh, okay, we could do this. So I did my schooling online at my own pace, and I passed my exams. And so it'll be 3 years in April that I have my license, and I've been doing it, and I love it. I freaking love it. I can't believe it, but I do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any like tics or habits that you picked up in your sports career that you still do now? Maybe like, you know, you still, if you work out a lot, or just things that are directly from that experience that you still do?
Good question. I still work out, not as much as I did before. One, just my body has changed and I can't go as hard on it as I did, and time constraints, but I definitely feel like I need to do a yoga session or go for a hike or go get a lift in. So that part still remained. I'm still very competitive. Like that didn't leave my bones. So, I mean, like I want to succeed, and I want my clients to succeed, and I'll do what I got to do. And I'm driven to make sure that happens. So that has never left me. I mean, I get in fights playing cards sometimes because I'm very competitive. No, not quite fights, but
heated arguments.
Mistakes were made. Things were
Do
said.
you smack Ryan around?
Yeah. Him and I, we do play cards sometimes, and we can get in. Well, we usually partner up. Me and my brother play partner spades against my parents, and it's pretty good competition.
That's awesome. Well, Megan, you gave us an hour. You told us from 4th grade, 5th grade, Bart days, all the way to your French winning championships days. What else is there to tell us? What have we missed? What did our researchers not find out?
Well, I was waiting for my dog, Lou. He's the dog that's been with me overseas. He's literally been on trains, planes, and automobiles.
That dog is famous. How old is Lou? I was afraid to ask if Lou is still with us because I lost a dog recently, and it's the worst thing you can go through. How old is Lou?
Yeah, I feel like he will be 12 in May, and I am dreading the day. I mean, he's been my little buddy. I got him when I was in Minneapolis way back, in 2010. And he literally, I didn't have a car then. I bought a scooter, a little 50cc scooter, and her name was Bonnie. And he would ride in his little bag, his little carrier bag right in front of me. There was a hook. I'd put him on the hook, and he was between my feet. And so he flew over with me every year, and he was just my little companion over there. He's still with me, but yeah, I'm dreading that day.
He has some frequent flyer miles, that's for sure.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, he's famous on social media, so I'm glad he's still around. I haven't seen him for a while.
What kind of dog is this best boy? This best dog ever.
I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, he's perfect. He's the perfect breed.
Yeah, he's a Yorkie Lhasa Apso mix. So he's like smallish. Wow. It's kind of he's chusky now. He is a little chusky now.
Heyo.
Heyo.
There it is. Megan, that brings me to probably our most pressing question of the night. Speaking of Lou. So, JR, can you want to jump in with this? Maybe you can help me out, finish this. I forget how it goes. If you ain't chubby,
and you're not husky,
what the hell could you be? What's Lou?
He's Chusky.
damn right.
Chusky
he is.
Boys.
Yeah.
Episode 18 in the books. I can't believe we made it this far, JR. After episode 3, I told my therapist, no way in hell I can work with this guy no more. And here we are, 15 episodes later. Got WNBA players, European players, New York Yankees, Breaking Bad actors. We've done it all, Megan. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for being on. Probably my most famous friend of all time. Grew up in Piedmont. I mean, hell, that's amazing, isn't it? Grew up in Piedmont. You know, someone who played in European basketball. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Are you still active on social media? You've got your fans. Let's face it, you do have fans all over here in Europe. Is there anything you want to call out, like people can follow you on? Do you have you used to have like a professional Facebook page, right? Do you not have that anymore? Or do I don't, maybe you do.
You can find me on Facebook, Megan Mahoney, or my business page, Megan Mahoney Assist to Sell Realty. I'm on Instagram. Well, I'm not even sure what, Megsy34.
Megan, go Bears. We should go to a game sometime.
Da Bears.
The Bears.
Da Bears. All right, guys. That was
See you,
fun.
Megan.
Thanks
Later.
again.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, episode 18 in the books. Great interview with a local basketball star, Megan Mahoney. Dusty brought you the connection you have.
Once again, my shoulders are hurting from carrying this team.
Yeah,
Thanks,
easy,
Goat, for
killer.
everything you do.
Easy killer.
Thanks, Dusty,
You're
for everything
welcome.
that I do, and that's about the extent of it.
Poor JR.
I can see
No
what's going
thanks.
on there.
This
That's,
guy talks so much shit to me when we're not podcasting. I got to get him in while we're on live. For our tens of thousands of listeners, they've got to know JR is not a nice guy.
I always say that I speak two different languages. One is English, maybe not very good English, and then shit. I talk a lot of shit. So it is what it is.
Perfect. That's
The
the way
love
to.
is real.
That's how we're
love
going to
is
end
real
episode
here.
18 right there. Peace.